Standard rank for Theros Beyond Death is coming to an end in 10 days. Now, before we get Ikoria, Lair of the Behemoths, and before we have to start finding out what top deck is a big dog, I want to walk through you with the meta and what you will find on Standard ranked. Obviously, you will always see Mono Red as the #1 contender and Azorius Control, but we're not going to be talking about those today. Today, we have 4 decks on our list that you should be building your decks around. In the last 30 days, we have seen the meta fluctuate. We've seen control decks fall as ramp decks gain popularity, aggro decks get crushed to life gain, and reclamation lose to something even worse. Today, we are going to talk about 4 decks that are gaining popularity and are consistently putting wins on the board. Let's start with the underdog. At the number 4 spot, we got Rakdos Sacrifice. Coming into Theros, Junsac was the deck to beat. They have fallen from grace but are making a comeback as Rakdos, and there are 2 things Rakdos does well. Against fires, it can aggro faster, against red, it can aggro harder, and with Mayhem Devil, it can machine gun small creatures as it gains life with food tokens or Cauldron of Familiar. And it has one card that a lot of the other decks don't use, and that is Claim the Firstborn. Your Euro or your Krasis is on board, they take it, swing with it, and then sack it to Oven, which opens the board for them to continue their combo. Now, unless you have a true board wipe that can also get rid of artifacts, or just hit their graveyard so their familiars don't come back, you're going to have a tough time beating this deck. With Bull Striders to help them scribe for the cards they need, and with Cauldron Familiar with the small life gain, and the jump blocks if they don't have trample, they will ping you down one by one. Now, the next 2 decks are ramp decks, but they do things differently. We have Sultai and Bant Ramp. We will just talk about what they do differently. Let's start with Bant. It can drop Trawler on turn 4, runs Teferi and Knight of Autumn as toolbox, has board wipes like Wrath and Control, also Elspeth Conquers Death to get rid of creatures that are Titans or graveyard useful material. It does run more control variants where they get more resources than you, and puts beat sticks on the board. And with Teferi, you can only deal with them on your turn. Now we're going to go to Sultai. The early game is Thought Erasure and Growth Spiral. They have almost the same creatures but run 4 Cavalier of Thorns, great 5-drops with amazing stats. Instead of Teferi, they run Vraska, which kills early game pressure, and if ulted can help end the game. Instead of a board wipe, they do run Casualties of War, which can get rid of other enchantments or artifacts that Bant Ramp can't really deal with unless they go Knight of Autumn. And with the right hand, they can turn 4 Casualties, take a land from you, and then Tamil to get it back. Now, with that being said, these decks are meant to ramp and get into their bigger spells. So, if you can just aggro them, as opposed to Bant Ramp, Sultai has a little bit harder of a time getting life gain. But if you go against Bant Ramp, just know that they will be gaining a lot more life. And with Teferi on board, you're going to have to waste a lot of your resources on your turn just to get rid of that Teferi or the card that is a bigger threat. An old proverb once said, "It is difficult being in first place, as they are constantly setting the bar, while the rest just have to beat it." Azorius was the kid on the block that set the bar. When everyone built a deck, they built it around Azorius and a way to beat it. Other decks gain a bit of the upper hand. Jeskai, on the other hand, ain't like any other deck. Yes, it has a little fundamental flaws and bad hands occasionally, but consistently, the deck and the way it is built can run to beat almost any deck. Once the fire is resolved for the next turn, it is unmatchable, with spells like Deafening Clarion to help you get to turn 4, Stomping Giant and Elspeth to help clear the board of any big threats, and they can play 2 vital roles without having to need a sideboard, with cards like Teferi to help your opponent slow down their plays, Sphinx of Foresight to help them scry, Deafening Clarion for the board wipes, and they also have cards like Cavalier and Kenrith for the aggro. If it goes to turn 5 and those 2 hit the board, what I would recommend for you is to start prepping your sideboard and see what you want to take out, because those 2 will put on a lot of damage faster than you can count it. And they became the new kid on the block that everyone needs to watch out for. And trust me when I say this, they deserve to be there.